We have to do the rank of the Bonk Retrospective. How do the games compare? Which ones are good, which ones are bad, who's at the top, who's at the bottom? How does one feel after so much bonking? I have a headache. No, I don't. But that would make sense, right? So yeah, Bonk Retrospective, it was very fun, it was very interesting. I had never played any of these games. And these retrospectives are also always fun because you get to see how the games change and evolve and what they try to do differently here and there. And I think this was, to me, my humble opinion, I thought this was more interesting than the Joe and Mac retrospective, personally. It was very interesting to explore the games, see the cover arts, and see the difference in the American cover arts and all of that. Bonk 2 ranks pretty high, we'll see. We'll see, I'm looking at it here. Let's start from the bottom, of course. What is the absolute worst game we have played in the last month? Possibly year, everyone. Any guesses? What piece of absolute garbage dog shit is going to be at the bottom of the pile? You guessed it right, it's GB Gaijin Land. Viva Chico no Cuckoo. Fuck that game, man. Like, just, yeah, that one. Just fuck this game. Like this. So this is not... I'm gonna give them one good thing, okay? They managed to use bonk mechanics, right? Like, running around and jumping and bonking forward and bonking down, flipping in the air, kicking and everything. They got the basic mechanics all working in there. And they built all the 6 mini games around the base mechanics. That's pretty good. They had like Breakout, the freaking Arkanoid minigame, used bonk mechanics. That's pretty good. That's creative. That's interesting. Everything else about it is dumb and shit. It's just 6 minigames. You have to do each minigame 4 times with higher difficulty. It overstays its welcome like 10 minutes in. Like, you don't even finish seeing all the 6 minigames before you're already done with it. Best retrospective ever. Booga Bonk Hello Other Gaming. It was very good retrospective, yeah. So yeah, that's bottom of the pile, 15. Screw this shit. I'd rather, like, if I knew this was the way it was, I would probably not have done this retrospective. That's how much I hate this. If I knew, I would, like, I don't know, I would be playing Fortnite or something like that. But this game is horrible. Like, stay away. Right, second on the list. In all fairness, the mobile bonk. It's... it wasn't fun, it wasn't interesting. The music on the title screen was pretty good. The graphics were not the worst in the series, by any stretch of the imagination. But you know, it was boring, it doesn't really work that well. Like, okay, it's a mobile game, you have to give it some... You have to cut it some slack. But even for mobile phone game standards, it was bland and repetitive and nothing. And the dialogue, why was... First time Bonk ever says anything, I don't want people taking women from my turf! Guards, take him away! The end! What? It was dry and bland, yes. Remember going AFK for like 2 hours still on that roller coaster when you came back. That roller coaster, man! I remember on the second stream, I don't remember who it was that came in here. Well, you went through the roller coasters once and you died, and I went to do something else expecting you to take all night. And I can't understand that, but I got on the second try. But yeah, the first night was like 2-3 hours of roller coasting. God damn it. Anyway, Bonk's return, dry, bland, irrelevant, cash grab. If you paid more than $2 for it back in the day, you were ripped. Right, next up, the PS2 remake, released in 2003. Now this is obviously after Bonk's prime, 8 years after the previous Bonk game. It's a remake, they added some new stuff, most of it is not very good. The levels were too easy because the enemies, the normal enemies, were too easy. So the levels were like whatever. But I did enjoy it. I did say this while playing it. At some point I realized, you know what, I'm having fun jumping and attacking. The bosses were absolute dog shit. The second boss was freaking impossible. I went in with 15 lives, I came out with 3, if I'm not mistaken. And then you get to the final boss, the final 3 bosses, and they're just a walk in the park. And the game looked absolutely atrocious. Like the graphics, like the 3D was beyond shit, but at least the controls were good. They messed up the swimming controls. It's the only game in the entire Bonk series that messes up the swimming controls. Alright, but you know, it's still, I had some fun. It's definitely better than the other 2 games. If I were to play, I had to choose one of these 3 to play again, it would be that one. Despite it being very long, it was still enjoyable. Welcome back, Necrain. You got in here for the ranking reveal. It was the ugliest Bonk by far. It destroyed all the charm the series had. The only reason it's not lower is because I actually had fun with it. Anyway, we're going to get now into good Bonk territory. Alright, so from here on out it's kind of subjective. And the one I'm gonna put here at a 12, I know some of you will disagree. It's based on my enjoyment of it, and I do realize I played it the wrong way. Okay, so take this with a grain of salt, but over here I'm gonna put the arcade Bonk. It's very fast, it's very weird, it's kind of charming. I was not a... yeah, 3 bad games out of 15. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Like, from here up, everything is reasonable. I totally agree. Completely agree. So I'm gonna put the arcade version here because I personally didn't enjoy it. Like, if you're gonna be playing this game for hours and hours to get a 1cc, very carefully, juggling the timer and the mechanics, I think it can become an enjoyable experience. I had people say that they would have loved to play this game on the arcade back in the day. I get it. It's not for me, I guess. I played through it, I saw everything it had. I don't know, it's well a little bit too weird. It was the first Bonk game where you could crouch as well, and I have a problem with that. It was okay, I guess, but not my cup of tea, which is why it's at 12. Next up, again, not a bad game, okay? Next up, NES one. It's down here because there's better stuff above it. And my problem with the NES game is that it is very safe. It's basically like the original Bonk adapted for late era NES, 1992, where you only have either horizontal scrolling or vertical scrolling. It's safe, it's fine, it doesn't do anything worth of note. If all you had back then was an NES and that's the only Bonk you played, you probably had fun with it. If you still had an NES by 1992. But I don't have anything good to say about it. It was acceptable. Controls were great. It worked fine. If you didn't have any other options, sure. No complaints there. Now I'm gonna put in here a game that I'm going to rank. You know what? I'm going to change this rank. Executive decision, I'm changing the rank. Okay, next up. Again, not a bad game. Super Bonk for the SNES. Not a bad game. It looked good. It had a good variety. But the controls were shit. It had a lot of slowdown. Bonk was very slow and very floaty. The controls were slightly delayed. I wasn't a big fan. It's a good game. I wasn't a big fan. Okay, now Super Bonk 2 was not released outside of Japan. Maybe because Super Bonk was not well received outside of Japan, that would be one of my guesses. It's original and varied, but the controls kind of kill it. The momentum and the inertia kind of kills it to me. Alright, now, next up, one of my favorites, actually. It's very low because, again, I have to compare it to everything else, but when I played it, I thought it was amazing. Bonk's Adventure for the Game Boy, the first Bonk game on the Game Boy. I was so freaking surprised by how much it felt like Bonk despite being original. The bosses were original if I'm not mistaken, the levels were different, everything about it wasn't like the NES one. Like I rank it higher than the NES one, because it wasn't just being, okay, let's safely translate original Bonk into the Game Boy. No, it was, you know, here's some new stuff, it's interesting, it's fun, it's Game Boy, it's fair. I was pleasantly surprised. Alright, I liked it a lot, and it kind of reminded me when I played it of John Mac for the Game Boy, which was also very good for the Game Boy. Like, if you compare it to the other Bonk games, sure, that's why it's at 9 and not higher. But for a Game Boy, it's very solid. Moving on, of course, because it's Game Boy, I'm gonna keep it here. Bonk's Revenge, the second one. It's fucking amazing. It has Darth Vader, it has a Xenomorph, it has facehuggers, it has the best bosses in any of the Bonk games. Other than that, just like the other Game Boy game, it was very good, it was original, different, a lot of interesting stuff, solid mechanics, interesting power-ups. It had one of the better power-up systems. And absolutely no complaints, very good game. Like, from here on up, like, these are all very good games, honestly. I'm surprised by how good Bonk was. Because you would expect a series with such good games to have endured somehow, but it didn't. Anyway, we're gonna start now with the weakest of the top games, which is still saying something, which was Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure. Now this one, they tried to do a bunch of original stuff. This game, when we played it, we kind of defined it as being try-hard. Okay, it was not mediocre by any means of the word. It was not phoning it in, it was trying too hard. And some of the, like, it introduced the idea of small bonk and big bonk, but they didn't work well because as soon as you got hit, you lost it. Big bonk was pointless, outside of one part where you could jump higher and it helped. And it also had, like... Was this the one? No, it wasn't. The one with the atrocious spike section at the end of the game. I think that was Bonk, Super Bonk 2. Was it? I don't remember. No, it wasn't. I think it was the... Or was it Super Bonk? I don't actually remember. It's been like a couple of days, I can't remember this stuff. Because all the Bonk games, they start easy, they have an impossible level at the end, and they have a boss rush. With some exceptions, because, you know, not every game is a winner. But yeah, Bonk 3 was kind of weaker compared to the other games. And it's 1993, it's about the point where they were already branching out to other systems. It was kind of okay. They might have spread out a little bit too much, trying to make it for the U-card and the CD version at the same time. I don't know, it's almost good. It's almost very good. But it's still ranked at 3, so that's fine. Now, at position number 6, I have Welcome Sabotage. At position number 6, I have one that is a surprise to me. I thought I wasn't gonna like it because it's not a genre I like. But on position number 6, we have Air Zonk, which is a shmup. It's kind of limited in a few aspects, but there's just so much freaking content on that small card. And it's very accessible, and I say that for 2 reasons. 1, I beat it despite being shit at shmups. 2, I beat it not realizing that you could use bombs, because I didn't read the manual, so I was just shooting normally. Now the power-up system in that game is kind of irrelevant. You can choose what to use, but they all play the same, pretty much. But it had so much variety. The final stage was a feast for the eyes, with all the stuff in there, all the sprites and everything else. So yeah, it's a shmup, it's very good, it's very original, it's very, very Japanese. But it's a shmup on the TurboGrafx, so you know it's going to be good. And it is. Pretty good stuff. Next up, and we're getting to very, very high quality territory here. Next up, Super Bonk 2. Chou Genjin 2, only released in Japan. That's a very, very, very solid game. It is, in my opinion, the most polished of the Bonk games. Has a variety of power-ups, they are all unique and different, they all work well. The bosses are different and unique and they work well. The final segment, I wasn't a big fan of the final boss fight, but the final segment was interesting. It was just solid all around. Like, I have nothing to complain about this game. I wasn't a fan of the last boss fight, but other than that, it was incredibly solid. And it had a password system. It's so strange to have a password system on the SNES. I had to use it because we didn't finish the game on the first stream. The only other game that had a password system was the Bonk's Revenge for the Game Boy. I didn't use it. But yeah, this one is very good. It's very polished. I think it would have been a hit if it made it outside of Japan. That world map was very charming. There was a lot of variety. There was a train stage. Those are always great. There is a part at the end of the game where you... At the end, after you defeat the final boss, where you have to squish it with its own base. It's very good. It's fun. Now, number 4, this game surprised so much by how good it was. Super Zonk 2, Super Air Zonk, Rockabilly Paradise. It had an amazing soundtrack. We started the game saying, you know, it would be good if we had actual rockabilly music. And it did. It fucking did have the best soundtrack I've heard in a while. And it was like Air Zonk, except like it had better graphics, because I don't know if this TurboGrafx CD actually has better hardware. I feel like it does, because we barely got any sprite flickering. It was very colorful, very unique, a lot of variety. The music. The power-ups were interesting and varied. Each level we had a different power-up. You play through the level, midway through it you would get the power-up. And it would usually play into how the level requires you to play. It was freaking solid game all around. You don't even have to interrupt gameplay when you die. It just goes quack and you continue playing. It's one of the best shmups I've ever played. Not that I've played a lot, but it was freaking amazing. It makes me want to play a bunch of Parodius games. Outstanding. The intro to that game. What a freaking good intro as well. Anyway, number 3. This one is going to make some of you go, huh? Because you probably already forgot about it. And this game would have been number 1, I swear to God, if it wasn't for the fact that it crashed. I'm talking about BC Kid for the Amiga. Yeah. Because it's Bonk 1, but it runs better. It's smoother. The music is not very Bonk. It's better, but it's not very Bonk. That's like a downside to it. But it was so freaking solid. It played so freaking well. I was farming lives left and right. Backgrounds were great. Everything. It supported 2 buttons. You didn't have to use up to jump. It was amazing, except it crashed at the same spot with the official dump from the devs on 2 different Amiga emulation setups that I tried. It crashed when, I think on the level they had like the 4th boss, so I couldn't finish it. I'm still ranking high because maybe it was something I messed up with, but I can't rank it higher than this, of course, because it was crashing. I didn't see all of it. Maybe it messed up at the end. It had one problem, it had limited continues, but you know, it's fine. I was really looking forward to that game. Next up, Bonk's Adventure for the TurboGrafx, the first game. It's good, it's solid, it's established the base mechanics. It looks a little bit rough, the sprites got a lot better after the first game. And the final stage, use continues to get 3 hearts, 2 lives, good luck killing 6 bosses. But it was still very good. And for 1989, it was freaking solid. The music was amazing, established the good music that we know and love, the boss music that we can't get out of our heads. It was amazing. And first, some of you have already guessed it before I even started. The first one was Bonk's Revenge for the TurboGrafx, which is the first one, but everything is slightly better. Like, the controls don't require you to use turbo anymore, they're balanced around you not using turbo. It established mini games without being too overboard with them, like some of the other Bonk games were. It had interesting bosses. The boss rush was interesting that it had those levels where you could get extra lives and upgrades before the bosses, which worked really well. It was solid. The final boss fight was kind of interesting. It wasn't too difficult, but it looked interesting. It was amazing. All around, the best Bonk game by far. Like, sure, I mean, you could argue that, say, Super Bonk 2, if you compare them directly, it's better. Maybe, but, you know, 1991, 1995, I'll go with Bonk's Revenge for the TurboGrafx. It's just... it's perfect. It established the better sprites for Bonk as well, which is basically the style that every other game used. And yeah, that's my final ranking. You guys feel free to disagree with me, of course. That's in the order of how much I enjoyed each of these games. And yeah, this has been the Bonk Retrospective. Very, very good stuff. Very, very, very good shit.